I had the mind of like an 80-year-old man, and I was 19. What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video, you guys. My name is Alex Moore. If you guys are new to the channel, I appreciate you coming on by and checking it out. If you're not new to the channel, then thank you again for coming on back. I'm a business owner. I'm 20 years old. I've been owning this landscaping company of mine for about 5 years now, almost 6 years. There's a lot of work that's gone into it, which is kind of going to be what this video is about today. I'm going to kind of walk you guys through my past, how I started my business, things that I've encountered along the way, stuff like that. I'm also an investor. I work in the restaurant field. I've been venue catering. I've been wedding catering. I've also been working inside of a restaurant for about 5 years as well. And yeah, in today's video, I just kind of wanted to talk about a few things about life in general. You know, what I'm going through as a 20-year-old, a recently turned 20-year-old. I've only been 20 for about 2 months. And just about life as an entrepreneur, as a hardworking individual, and as somebody who's not living the typical, I guess you could say, 20-year-old life. You know, everybody my age is kind of in college, is kind of, you know, pursuing a degree, stuff like that. I'm out here pursuing, you know, my own business and just, you know, hoping that one day I can turn this into something more. And, you know, these last couple of years have been very successful for me, very good and very beneficial. And I feel like there's a lot of different things that I've learned over these years that I could definitely share with you guys. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the video. It was the winter time. I had gone around and put flyers in my neighbors' mailboxes. I printed up like 50 or 100, you know, I typed up a Google Doc talking about, hey, this is how old I am, this is what I do, this is what I'm looking to get into. I had absolutely zero experience, never done it before. But again, I was just going around asking people, hey, if I could shovel your driveway during this winter. Again, I didn't have plows or nothing like that. It's just straight up me going around with my shovel. And yeah, I started off when I was 15 years old I had like literally this house, like 2 houses down from me, was one of my first customers ever. A house right over here, this guy named Scott, he was one of my first customers. After that winter season, I shifted into landscaping that summer for the same exact people. This guy Scott down there, I was moving and cutting wood for him. He had a little like, not a basement, but like a downstairs area underneath his house for storage. And it was, the fencing around it was all broken and destroyed. I rebuilt the fencing around it, had it all enclosed again, and, you know, filled up wood down there and various other things. I had to dig it out, do a whole, it took weeks and weeks and weeks and a lot of work. And I did it all by myself. I got paid for all these things. I was doing all that. And I just have to say that everybody can do something like this. You know, it's not as hard as it seems. The hardest part is getting out there and doing it. You got to go talk to people. You got to go communicate. You got to be okay with people saying, no, I'm okay, I don't want your service. And you just got to be like, okay, you know, no problem. I appreciate it. And thank you for letting me have this conversation and come by or whatever it is, you know. But you got to be okay with being denied, with them saying no. On top of that, you got to be okay with talking to people every day, having conversations that you might not even want to have. You know, you might be in a bad mood showing up to work, but that bad mood has to go away when you're at work, because when you're in front of customers, you got to be professional, you got to act a certain type of way. And I've learned over these years more and more of how to act and how to establish myself and come off as professional. But anyway, I turned 16 that summer and spring. I spent landscaping in my neighbor's properties. I had saved up enough money and I bought my own first car. Bought cash, everything like that. It was like $3,000, something like that. I bought my first car. It was a Chevy Malibu. I used that Chevy Malibu to get around for the rest of that spring and then into the summer, into the winter time that year. And I really started to push, you know, going around my town, putting these flyers in people's mailboxes. I was embarrassed because if people saw me putting stuff in their mailboxes, I didn't want them to think anything. So I would literally go at pitch black, nighttime, like midnight, drive around and then put it in people's mailboxes. That way nobody really knew or saw me doing it. I don't really know why I did that, but I vividly remember those late night drives, just going around with 100 flyers in my passenger seat, folding it in half, sticking it in a mailbox, going to the next house, folding it in half, sticking it in a mailbox. And let me tell you something, bro, out of the hundreds of people that I put into their mailboxes, flyers, probably got like 2 dozen, maybe 30 people to reach out to me again, which means I probably ended up keeping about 15 customers out of that, you know? So you can't expect it to be a huge success rate when you're doing stuff like this. But that's what promotion is. That's what putting yourself out there and promoting yourself is. It's supposed to be something that not everybody's going to enjoy, but you're going to have people trickle in. You're going to have people kind of say, I'll give him a chance. You know, I'll give this a shot. Then once they give you that shot, you're in. You just got you can't mess it up. You got to know how to act. You got to be professional. You got to get the job done and make sure everything about your business is super, super reasonable, starting with your attitude, how you present yourself. I don't care if you have people working for you or anything like that. You still need to be professional yourself. Yeah, so I got my vehicle when I turned 16 years old. My dad was at the auction. I was at school on my 16th birthday. I didn't even take the day off from school. My dad was at the auction. He FaceTimed me, showed me some cars. I already had given him the cash, and he bought the car for me, But I obviously paid for it. It was under my name, everything like that. So once I had the Chevy Malibu that year, I just spent kind of going around my town, spreading the word, stuff like that, doing their landscaping, mowing their lawns, trimming their bushes, gutter cleaning, stuff like that. Anything that they asked me to. I was not, my company has never been specific from the start. I don't do this and this and this. I will absolutely do whatever you ask me to do, as long as it falls under my terms and my qualities. But yeah, I spent that year doing whatever you could think of at people's houses. When I went into the winter time of that year, when I was 16 and we went into the winter, that was when I bought my first snowblower. I bought my snowblower. It wasn't a plow, it was a snowblower. I was able to fit it into my car, of course. I had to get a small one, but it was expensive. And I was able to fit it in my car, and then I was going around that winter. I was snowblowing people's driveways compared to shoveling, which again, shoveling was hell. Hell. My first year was hell, bro. I was outside at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, all day long on those snowstorm days, and I was doing people's houses. And then I was going to school if there was still school that day. I was still going to school if I had to. Usually, we had school off that day because it was a snow day. Just understanding that there's so much work that has to go in behind it. You're not going to be successful doing your business right away. It's going to take longer than probably a year. It took me years to actually find success in this. But it's hard work, man. It's not an easy thing to do. So once I was like snow plowing people's driveways that winter, that was kind of the first winter that I kind of saw, profit turn for me. I still when I say profit, I mean I made back the money that I spent on my snowblower that winter and a bit more, so it wasn't crazy profit, but I was actually starting to see that, hey, if I put in this work, if I spend some money to get better equipment, if I do stuff like this, it's actually going to turn over a profit in the end. So not getting discouraged when you have to spend money and you're not profitable. You just got to understand that in order to build your business, there's a lot of things that you have to do beforehand. You got to get the right equipment. You got to always be upgrading, always bringing in new things for your customers, new ways to do the same job, because it'll just keep your customers intrigued. It'll keep them trickling in. That's all it is. Anyway, next, after that winter when I was 16 years old, it was pretty much that year of being 17 that really changed things for me. I was 17. I spent that spring, summer, and fall all on my own, by the way. I didn't have anybody employed at this point. And I was all over every website you could think of, specifically this app called Nextdoor. Nextdoor is really what changed things for me. I was posting on there. So what that is basically you select where you live, you select your neighborhood, and you can post things to your neighborhood. So I could post saying, hey, I'm a landscaper, blah, blah, blah. They can see my address. It only posts to people who are in your same kind of neighborhood, So if I say, hey, I lived in, New York City, blah, 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 only people in the city are going to see these messages. That's a bad example, but you know what I'm saying. I just don't want to give away my actual address. But yeah, the people in my neighborhood were able to see my posts. Now, what I was doing is every couple weeks, I was changing my neighborhood. That way it was reaching different people. And it ended up being really successful for me. I drew in over 100 customers just from that app alone that year, right? That year, by the way. My posts on there were going viral. I had so many people reaching out to me. I was jumping right on the opportunity the next day. I was at the people's houses who were messaging me, spending all day doing the work. I had a bunch of people putting comments on those same posts saying, hey, Alex came by today. He was super quick. His timing was awesome. He got back to me right away, blah, 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 blah. And, it turned out to be a really good thing for me. I had a lot of positive, a lot of positive support behind my business. There was a lot of people saying, he does a great job, he's doing this and that. And I had everybody reaching out to me, trying to schedule a time for me to come do something for them. I would say the hardest part when you're, and let me tell you guys something as well. I was doing all of this not licensed. I was not even licensed, so understanding that it's a lot harder to promote yourself, to get people to want to do your services if you are not licensed, They're going to want people who are licensed under, and they're classified to do the work. They're not going to want some kid coming in and doing the work for them. But like I said before, and like I mentioned before, it's all about your personality. It's all about how you carry yourself, how you introduce yourself and how you act. It changes everything. You know, it's gonna allow people to take the chance on you. It's gonna allow people to give you the benefit of the doubt and let you give it a shot. But yeah, 17 was a very good year for me. I drew in a whole bunch of customers. I did a whole bunch of work, and that was probably my first year that I could say I actually saw profit. You know, there was actually a substantial amount of money in my hands that I did not have in my hands when I was starting. I do have to say as well, I was not the best with saving money, so I didn't really maintain too much of that money, but at the same time, all I was doing was working. So I really didn't, you know, I wasn't enabled to just be spending my money 24/7 because I was always working. So I was stupid. I smoked a lot of weed back then. I was buying weed like every other day, literally, just throwing my money away on drugs and all that good stuff, you know, which is not good stuff. I've been doing drugs since I was 16 years old, when I was kind of in the middle, like the first year of doing this business. I'm completely sober now, by the way, of course. But I was on drugs from like 16 to like 18, 19 years old, and heavy every single day. All I was doing was high as hell and just working, you know, but I enjoyed it because all I was is I was just high and I was working. My body felt good. I was in a good mood all the time. But what I realized over time is it was not a beneficial thing. It was not a good thing. I was dumping a lot of my money that I was making into just drugs and spending it again, along with gas and keeping my equipment going and service. You know, I needed to spend money in order to go make money. So in the end, I kind of like finished off that year being 17. Like, wow, I made a lot of money. But then I said, wow, look at how much money you would have made if you weren't spending all that money on this and that, right? So yeah, 18 years old was the same thing. I knew this from the start. You know, I saw my drug addiction. I saw, you know, what was holding me back from actually reaching a potential that I didn't even know was possible, you know. And I didn't care enough to stop. I said to myself, hey, this is a pretty decent process that we got going. I got a little business kind of forming. I'm working. I'm doing what I should be doing. Keep in mind, I've been doing this since 15, so I always had in my head like, wow, Alex, you're doing good. You know, you're young, you're working, all this kind of stuff. So hey, you know, it's not too bad to just kind of pleasure yourself a little bit. And that was my mindset for a couple of years until I would say 19 came around. And then 19, I kind of started to wake up to the fact that this is not how you could live. It's not a way to live. First of all, when I say I smoked weed, I smoked a lot of carts, right? I smoked a lot of those like fake weed, disposables. I smoked bud too, you know, actual weed, but it was a whole lot of just the carts, the bad shit. My brain was just all over the place. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't think clearly when my customers were talking to me. This was big when I was 19, by the way. It took a couple of years for these effects to kick in. But when I was 19, I really started to see when customers were talking to me, my moods were showing. You know, you could see I just wasn't in the best mood, or I don't really know how to explain it, but my head just was not on straight. The customers would be looking at me, talking to me, asking me something, and just me processing it was just behind. I started to see I was slowing down. I wasn't remembering things as well. I had the mind of like an 80-year-old man, and I was 19. My thoughts were slowed down. I was always in a bad mood 24/7 because I was always needing another one, and just, it was never enough. I was an addict. I was an addict who worked his ass off, you know? Through this whole process, I never stopped going to customers' houses. I never stopped my business. It was something I was doing every day. Well, in high school, while going to school. So I was maintaining it, absolutely. But was it a struggle? Absolutely. Was I enjoying myself? No. You know, work was not fun anymore. I was not enjoying making money. I didn't want to do it. I started to fall into this depression because all I saw was that, hey, my future, my life is going to be spent doing this. I'm going to have to go to work every single day. I'm going to have to talk to customers every day, be professional, put on this face every single day. And I started to just be so depressed. I never wanted to go to work. I never wanted to be in front of customers doing my job for hours on hours every day. It wasn't something I was even interested in anymore. When I went to promote myself, I didn't even want to promote my business anymore. I didn't even want to be a part of it. You know, but I needed to continue to make money. You know, and I also, it was another thing was if I wasn't working and making money, how was I going to continue to, you know, buy drugs and stuff? Horrible mindset, horrible place to be. I do not ever recommend doing any kind of drugs, man. That shit will shut you down, bro. It'll feel really good in the moment, but it'll catch up to you. Long story short, like 4 to 5 months ago, I finally was able to walk away. And when I say walk away, I don't say like it was an easy thing. It was not in any way an easy thing. I don't struggle with it anymore. I don't wake up and like think about it or spend my days thinking about drugs in any way. But at the time, it was not easy. I tried to quit drugs many times before I successfully did. Keep in mind, I say that when I was 18, I didn't care about quitting drugs or nothing like that. But I absolutely made a few attempts to quit, and I just was never able to. I was always getting right back on it, always saying there's no point, it's not that serious, just whatever, enjoy yourself. And it was serious. It absolutely was serious. I think that if I just I think weed is okay if you're smoking the actual weed, like bud. Even in that sense, it's not good to put smoke in your body, period, right? But it was the carts, it was those disposables. Man, I was going through them like every day. I was literally smoking one like every day. It was horrible, horrible, horrible. But you end up realizing things that you just don't realize before, right? Like I didn't look into a mirror. I didn't look at myself. I didn't even know what I looked like anymore. For years, I did not look into a mirror. And I don't even know why, right? It wasn't even like I was ashamed of myself or anything like that. It was more of just, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention to stuff like that. I stopped man, I don't know, my mind just was fried. Everything about my head was fried. I wasn't even here anymore. It wasn't even me. It was just this I don't even know who I was, what I was, and it's a very, very sad thing to have to look back into my past about, but I'm very glad that it's in my past and it's not who I am anymore. And this is unfortunately the reality for a lot of people. A lot of people. And I understand because, like I said, I don't fiend, as they say, for it anymore. I don't look for it every day. I don't want it anymore. But was it an easy thing to let go of? No. It was definitely not. It's something that you start to think that you need because you're so addicted. And this goes for any drugs, man. I used to be on nicotine too. I was able to walk away from nicotine after a short period of time because it was actually damaging me and I could actually feel my body getting weaker and dying from doing stuff like nicotine. So then I turned to weed full time and all I was doing was smoking weed. And I don't know, man, basically this video is just kind of wanting to share to you guys and be more transparent about my life. Just wanted to kind of share this video to you guys and be as transparent as possible, kind of talking a little bit about my past, a little bit about my business. But long story short, these last 6 months have been the best 6 months of my life. And I wasn't able to even realize it until I was able to, be actually sober and just kind of take a step back and say life is, because you got to realize, man, it could be your last day living today. Today could be my last day alive. But I think this is an important video for me to be able to look back on in a couple of years. And if there's ever a time in my life where I'm tempted to go back to it in any kind of way or anything like that, just to be able to have something physically to look back on with myself and just know that it's never going to be worth it again. It's never going to be worth to, throw away all the progress that I've made. I've cleaned up and I've sharpened up my mindset so much over these last couple months just because I've been sober. And you feel like when you're especially on weed and nicotine and all this kind of, lower level drugs, you feel like there's no need to stop doing it and it's not an issue in your life because it's just low level drugs. You're not doing meth, you're not doing coke and fucking fentanyl and shit. But at the same time, you have to understand that over time, it still damages your body so much. It takes a lot longer, of course. It's not going to be an instantaneous thing because it's not a hard drug. But is it going to affect your life negatively over time? Is it going to catch up to you at some point? Hell yeah. And it caught up to me after only a very short few years. And I'm very, very, again, glad about this because if I realized it later in life, I would not have been as successful as I've been over these last, year or 2 years. Even though, I spent a lot of that time on drugs, I was able to remove myself from it these last 6 months and this last 8, I don't even know. I have to look on my app, but I think I'm like 6 months sober, 7 months sober, something like that. I don't even check my app. I haven't checked my app in months and months and months because it doesn't matter to me anymore. It's a permanent thing in my life and it's never going to change. But anyway, yeah, these last 6 to 8 months of my life have just been the most financially supported time of my life because I've been making the same amount of money, you could say, but I've been saving so much more. It's allowed me to travel. It's allowed me to just save my money. So if there's ever a rainy day, if there's ever an emergency, I'm prepared. It's allowed me to just be in a different situation than I used to be when I was always on drugs because it was always, I was not that I was down to my last dollar back then, but I was not making money. I was not saving money, accumulating and accumulating and accumulating. I was accumulating and then spending because I wanted to, make sure I was, happy when I did my work. Why can I not be happy sober, right? It was a horrible mindset that I used to be in. It destroyed a lot of my own progress that I made in my life. I built up a business and I almost threw away a business because I stopped learning how to be able to talk to people because I was so fried in my mind. I was so fucked up in my head. I just couldn't even focus on simple conversations. Not even focus. It got to the point where I had incredible anxiety talking to people. Every conversation, I was as nervous as you could be to just talk to a human being. I would literally get nervous. I would stutter. I wouldn't be able to keep eye contact with people. I would lose track of my thought. You know what I'm saying? It was things like that made me realize, okay, you got a problem. You got a serious problem, Alex. And like I said, man, I fell into a very, very big depression for over a year. And I could just continue to abuse these drugs because I knew that I had a problem. But I didn't think that there was a solution. I didn't think that I would be able to just quit and be okay. And it's just, you fuck up your own head, man. You really do. Now, thankfully, I've never been an alcohol guy. I've never been drunk. I've been drunk, I think, once or twice in my life. And it was like 4 years ago with an ex-girlfriend. But yeah, I've always seen people throughout my life on alcohol. I've always seen people drunk and stuff like that. And I've always been able to say that there's no way that I want to ever feel. I don't ever want to not be in control of my actions. I don't want my actions to be involuntary, and I don't want to, not be able to process what the hell I'm doing or even remember it, So I've never, ever wanted to drink or try alcohol or be drunk or anything like that. And I had to develop that mindset for weed and for nicotine and stuff like that unfortunately I lost. By the way, when I was a kid, I was the most against drugs you could ever be, which is every kid, right? Every kid is, until you get reeled in and you get peer pressured, or even not peer pressured. Something reels you into it, right? And once you're reeled into it, it's almost impossible to get out of. But I'm here to tell y'all, it is not impossible. I'm only 20. I'm not even legally allowed to be smoking or doing anything for another year. Yeah, I can't just think about that. I still, at my current age, I'm 20 years old. I still legally cannot do drugs for another year, right? I've been addicted for 3 years. I was addicted for over 3 years, pretty much. And I wasn't even legally allowed to be on drugs. Like, it's such a sad thing that a lot of people are going through in this world. And it's more and more people every single day. And all these people watching this video that are going through it are probably like, well, it's not a problem in my life. I don't relate in that sense. But I'm telling you, man, just take a step back. And I want you to just think about yourself and think about what you do every day. And then think about if you weren't on drugs or if you weren't buying drugs all the time, how much better and just beneficial your life would be, how much it would change. And you just have to actually sit back and think about these things and actually be able to say, I need to make my life better. I need to be successful one day. I don't want to spend my life working, and the money that I'm making is going towards things that are not benefiting my future. But yeah, I really just understood, YouTube, that if I wanted to actually, see changes in my life, I can't keep doing the same things, right? And these are things that everybody understands and everybody knows, but not everybody can apply to their life. And I couldn't apply it to my life for a long time. So I've finally been able to do that over these last 6 to 8 months. It's been, I'm forever proud of myself for the fact that I was able to step away from those things. And, it's just changed my life so much. I've been able to afford to go to Dubai this year. I'm going to Dubai, all paid for already, because I've saved my money to afford this. I'm going to Florida next month because I've saved my money to afford this. And I'm working hard, and I'm no longer just wasting my money and wasting my time, because I used to go to work and then make the money that I was just going to go spend. So I was just wasting time, I wasn't even profitable. And if I was never on drugs, if I was just accumulating and just keeping my money that I was making, I would have well into the 6 figures by now. And I don't, I'm still at the 5-figure mark in my bank account because I have not been able to focus and to lock in enough to get rich. But yeah, YouTube, this was more of just kind of a sit-down video talking to you guys about, just letting you into my past a little bit, giving you guys an example of just get focused, really get focused and just lock in, forget about the shit that's not actually benefiting you. And it's hard. It's not an easy thing. I struggled a lot after I finally actually gave it up. I struggled a lot. It was not easy. So understand that it's going to be a struggle, and it's a beauty to struggle because you're alive, you're still here. And not that there's really people dying from weed, but I would say that those carts and stuff like that, it's definitely cutting years and years off of people's lives. And I probably already permanently damaged my body, and there's probably nothing I can do about it because of my past choices. But yeah, I'm not saying this video like, oh my god, if you do drugs, you're the worst person in the world and you're horrible. You're not. You know, there's nothing makes me any better than you or you any better than me. We're still both human beings doing this life thing, right? But it's just, man, if you really want to just be successful, you got to make those changes. You got to switch it up. If you're sad, if your life isn't what you want it to be, change things up, switch it up. And if you can't start with the drugs in your life, then start with something else, right? Switch up something else. And then ultimately you got to know that those are changes that you got to make. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. I just wanted to let you guys into my past a little bit, talk about a few things. If you enjoyed this video, I do appreciate you sticking around and watching it. And I hope that you kind of took something away from this video. If you didn't, then again, no problem. But I hope somebody did, and this helped somebody out. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all you guys. I'm dropping daily videos on YouTube, so be sure to stay tuned for those. I'm also live streaming on YouTube pretty much every single day. Yeah, I'm in the gym live streaming. I'm also at home talking to you guys live streaming. But I appreciate you guys checking it out. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you took away something from this video. Again, if you didn't, then no problem. But just understand that in life, you gotta work hard. You gotta be focused. You gotta be dedicated, and you gotta have a goal, and you gotta have steps that you're gonna take to reach it. And you can't fuck around with those steps. But yeah, last things last, just understand that you could work so hard. You could be so dedicated. You could have your own business. You could be putting in all the work in the world. But if you're not treating yourself correctly, if you're not, doing what you need to do for you and your body and your mindset, eventually it's going to catch up to you. Eventually you're not going to be as successful as you thought you were, and it's not going to work out for you. So just know that and just take that with you. And maybe you guys have already been through the same thing as me, but I'm only 20. So I'm very glad that I was able to get rid of it in my life before it was too late. And then now I get to look forward, and I need to just think towards my future and not think towards my past. And again, it's a struggle. I struggle every day. It's not that I want to go back to drugs, but it's still hard. It's a struggle, So I always have to just remember that it's a beauty to struggle. And then if I ever do go back to it, just all the progress that I threw away. I always keep that in my head. I hope you guys keep something like that in your head, and just stay motivated, stay working hard. And yeah, again, I appreciate you guys watching this video. Daily videos on YouTube, so be sure to stay tuned. I'll see y'all tomorrow.